typically we look at the new year as a reset. It's fresh start, time to start some new things. Hopefully, if people come along a little further, you realize every day is an opportunity for a reset.
Being self-aware really helps there because you can try to catch yourself and say, okay, wait a minute, hold on, that's old behavior. I'm more self-aware now. I know how to move out of this. Welcome back, everyone, to the Unfulfilled Achiever podcast, where we talk about achieving levels of success but still feeling like something is missing. Hey, I'm Melanie Walker Desir with my co-host Justin Wendell. How you doing, buddy?
Good, Melanie. How are you?
I am doing well. I know it's been a little while since we had our last episode. We've got a new year, so it's good to be back.
Yeah, it was definitely a busy time. Obviously, holidays, needed to take some time off, and not quite far enough along where we can do a bunch of rehash and reruns. So apologies for anybody that missed us over the holidays, but hope everybody had a great end of 2023 and a good start to 24 so far.
Exactly. So it's awesome to be back in the new year. We just, like you said, got through the holidays, and I know the holidays can be a fun time. I know my family was here and you hosted for your family.
Yep.
So that was awesome. But for some people, the holidays can be a little bit challenging. And, we kind of talked about that a little bit behind the scenes and how to maybe transition from that challenging time that can bring up feelings and thoughts, maybe some anxiety, depression, how to transition from that into the new year and just really kind of hit that reset button.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of thought around building momentum early, and I think typically we look at the new year as a reset. It's fresh start, time to start some new things. Hopefully, if people come along a little further, you realize every day is an opportunity for a reset. But for the majority, that 2024, that calendar flipping over is a new day. So I think it's a great time to start to look at anything that may be weighing us down mentally,
Mhm.
physically, whatever that may be. It's a great time to reset mentality and say, how do I get going forward in the new year and build some momentum? You talked about people having, challenging holidays. I've dealt with seasonal depression a lot in my life. I think it's a very real thing.
Mhm.
Actually had a little bit of a challenging end of year with loss of one of my dogs and some things going on, but it becomes one of those things that you have to assess and say, okay, what can I do about it? What can I change? And if there's nothing you can change, don't continue to give it the energy. Start to look forward. And that's, obviously look at the positives, like you mentioned, had hosted family, had some friends over, did some things, look at those positives and how we can start that year strong. So obviously, we're back at the podcast, looking at some different things. I hear you got some news we're going to talk about in a second,
Mhm.
but always looking for that positive piece and how to start to build the new momentum.
Yeah. I like how you said, reflect back
Yep.
on what's going on. So I like to look back at the year and say what happened, what were the good things that happened in the past year? Like what transitions did I make? What wins did I have? Things like that. You need to think about the things that maybe didn't go the way you wanted to as well. But I try not to dwell on those. I think about those more of the what was the lesson that I took from that and build on it for this new year and think about what are the things that I want to do this new year differently or better. Also, we always talk about being self aware. And I think that really comes into play too here when you reach those times where you're slipping back, maybe backsliding or dwelling on something that happened and not moving forward. Being self aware really helps there because you can try to catch yourself and say, okay, wait a minute, hold on, that's old behavior. I'm more self aware now. I know how to move out of this. I know how to say to myself, I've been through worse things in the past. I got through them, and you can use that to help you move forward too.
That's such a powerful piece. And I think people need to realize if you're here today, you've overcome. I have never met a single person that didn't have to have something that they'd have to overcome in their life.
Mhm.
And there's always different challenges. And if you take that step back, if you do it in the right way, you're looking at, I've been here before. I've done something, maybe it's not the exact same thing, but I've had to overcome challenges and I've succeeded and done it. I know 22, especially that's what we talked about kind of this time we've had off and kind of do our own resets. 22 was a challenging year. And it took me a while of just focusing inwards and resetting. And now I look back at it and said, yeah, that was a lot. There's a lot going on. But to your point, what were the lessons? And I said many times, like on my IG, is there's really no losses. The only way you take a loss is if you don't learn the lesson. If you look at any kind of challenge or any kind of obstacle and say, what can I learn from this? All you're doing is growing. So it's a win. So if you turn that mentality around and focus on that positive, you come out stronger. And then you start to embrace the challenges and say, okay, this is another challenge. What am I going to learn from it? How can I come out stronger? How can I do better? And that changes your life completely.
Yeah, really, it's about learning how to pivot,
Yep.
learning to recognize when you're in a negative place and catch it, and then take that and pivot to something more positive. Okay, we all have feelings. I'm here. I felt it, acknowledge it, and then be very conscious and intentional about switching it over and saying, like you said, how can I take this loss and what's the lesson? And, let me move in a different direction. So remember to make sure that you're pivoting out of that as quickly as you can and trying to move on.
And I think that's that higher level of self awareness. When you immediately catch yourself maybe dwelling in the pain or whatever it is and say, you know what, no, this is not the path I'm going to take. I'm going to look for the positive out of this. Remember one thing I saw, it's been a while, but it was a professor at a college and they had like a jar of water. And they asked the class, what is the weight of this water? And everybody did their guesses, what it was trying to be. And they said, well, what if I hold it for 10 minutes? What if I hold it for an hour? What if I hold it for a day? The physical weight hasn't changed of the water, but its impact to you has. You physically can't hold that up for a day long. After 10 minutes, you'll start to feel it. After an hour, you'll start to shake. After a day, you're going to collapse. But the physical weight hasn't changed. So, how much energy you've put into that and let that come over you. Sorry, Sumo is going crazy. This cone of shame. However much energy you've let hold on to you is the amount of impact it's going to have on you. So if you're constantly dwelling in your past, you're constantly looking at this is what happened to me, here's all the negatives, the more impactful it's going to be on you. If
Mm,
you, to your point, recognize it, reflect on it, and then find the positive and move forward, it no longer has that control and weight on you.
right. That's interesting. That's so true. If you hold something, it's the same weight, but you continue to hold it, it just feels more heavy, like a weight on your shoulders. And if you continue to hold on to it and let it and dwell on it, then it's more impactful. One of the things that I try to do, if I feel like there's something weighing on my mind, I keep having an intrusive thought, or I'm still thinking about something in the past, I like to journal. I feel like for me, if I write it down and I just put it on paper, or I might use voice notes on my phone, just to get it out, helps me move on, helps me say, I got it out. I had that thought. It was what it was. Put it where I'm going to put it. And then I try to close it and move on. And if I need to go back and listen to it, which I don't, if I feel after I write it down and get it out, I'm done. I can move on. I don't really go back and listen to it. But sometimes you get this negative loop stuck in your head, and that's a way that I found that I can get it out and stop thinking about it.
I think it's a powerful tool, and I think different people can utilize that differently. I think for me, as I wrote it down, it had small impact and small gain, but I would go back and read and say, what was I going through? What was my mindset? And why did I feel this way? And then say, okay, what can I do different if that arises again? How can I approach it differently? How can I make sure that I take us in a positive path the next time? Or even the positives. If you're journaling your positives,
Mm,
like sometimes when you're in a negative state, go back and say, I had these high hopes. Why am I letting myself slip back in? I have my own pieces of journaling by my bed, which unfortunately I've been in for a while because the dogs have been in surgery and challenges. But it was a lot of my focus and where I'm heading. And sometimes if I'm falling back in a rut, I can go back to that and say, no, I need to recenter around what were my goals and what am I trying to accomplish, and re-engage that energy I had as I wrote that down and capitalize that moving forward.
Do you ever go back and read your journals from previous years to feel the growth that you've
Yeah.
made? I recently stumbled across a journal that I have from 10 years ago, and reading it is like reading the words of somebody else, like a totally different person. And I was literally like, what was I thinking? Like, what? Well, that situation wasn't even that serious, or whatever. It wasn't what I thought it was, because you're in the middle of the storm and
Yeah.
it's hard to see outside of it or how it's going to get better. But the thing that I found is it was actually pretty therapeutic for me, because I could see how you got past that. It felt like the worst thing in the world at the time. I was broken at the time around that situation, but I got past that and I don't even recognize that person.
Yeah.
So that's helpful to me as well. I'd never gone back and read journals. I was cleaning out the garage and found a journal. And now I think I'll make it a routine when I do my resets each year. Is just randomly go pick a journal from the past and read it and really connect with the growth that you've made.
I think there's a little bit of a double edged sword. So I will add some caution. Like if you're not in a good mental state, don't go back and read negative things. You could
That's a good
actually make
point.
it worse. But once you've done some of that inner work, or if you want to go read back some of the positives, absolutely go do that. But I think you're 100% on about that growth that you do, that you become a different person. And some people say that's a negative thing, like you're not who you used to be. That's a good thing. You should be growing, you should be changing. And if you look back, back to what we're talking about, we've been through things before and we overcome. It's a good way to look at that, say, I thought this was the end of everything. I don't know how I made it through, but to your point, like now that I look at it more objectively, it wasn't that serious. In the moment, it felt like everything, but in reflection, it's it's trivial. Maybe not trivial. Maybe it'd be a big thing. Like I still have a lot of things in the past that were big things, but I was able to overcome them, and I can see the growth that came from that. And as long as you're keeping that mindset of looking for that growth, I think it's such a great exercise, such a powerful exercise.
The growth that came from it, but also sometimes you realize that that situation was necessary to get you to where you're going or where you went next. And in hindsight, you can see how the dots connect. So, being in the gray, I personally have a hard time living in the gray area. When you're doing something, like right now, I'm building my business and it's one step, one foot in front of the other, but there's a lot of gray out there. So it's a bit challenging for me, but looking back at some previous entries, I can see how where I was necessary because it took me to this place. So it can be, it can give you a little hope too when
Yeah.
you're in the gray area.
I'm not a fan of gray. I am very black and white. I like to know what's going on, where things are heading, my plans in motion. The world's not black and white.
Yeah.
And I've had to get comfortable with that. And I think that's a problem I've had in a lot of my life because I expected black and white and it's just not the reality. And so I think that's it. That's a great exercise in patience and faith. And I don't necessarily mean religious faith. I'm just saying faith in general that I'm going to get things done. I'm going to move the way things need to get done, moved to, and I'm going to reach my goals. And you have to have that faith in yourself or, whatever it is you're believing in. You put that faith in there that allows you to overcome that need for the black and white. And that's been a very tough lesson for me. I'll be honest, but it's something that's added a lot of value, I think, to my life too, is to start to accept that I can't know everything all the time. I can't control anything other than what I'm thinking and what I'm doing. And everything else is what it is. And it took a long time to get comfortable with
Yeah. Adulting is not black and white. And
that.
there's different stages of adulting. I talked to my son who's a young adult. He's 22 and he's getting ready to graduate, and so he's like, "I don't know if I'm ready." I'm like, "Yeah, adulting's no fun." That 20-year-old level of adulting and then the 30s and the 40s, you know what I mean? Like every level is different and
Very.
every level brings another level of gray.
Yep.
So you just gotta try to figure out how to work through the gray, or else I don't know what to tell you. I'm still figuring it out. I'll probably be doing that from now until I leave this earth because it's always changing.
But I think if you're growing, that should be happening. Stop thinking that there is a end of where I've learned it all. I mean, there's never is that. And again, something I've had to overcome myself because I wanted to be the know-it-all. I've got it all figured out. And I think in the early adult or even pre-adult, in those teen years, you think you know it all. It takes a while to give into that. But when you accept and embrace that it's constantly changing, you're constantly growing, you're constantly learning, it becomes exciting. Like, what's the next thing that I can take on? What's the next thing I can learn? And that's when your growth really starts to accelerate.
I'd love to have you brought up it being exciting, and it just put a thought in my head that when the gray comes and we know it's challenging, I'm going to start being intentional about trying to hype myself up and be excited about it, because there's something coming on the other side of it. So let's try to be excited about this time where you don't know what's going to happen, and just do all that you can do. Like you said, there's certain things you can control. Focus on the things you can control and do everything you can do, and then celebrate when you come out and you see and you know what it is. So excitement, that's going to be a new thing on my list for 2024, is to force myself to try to be excited about it.
Mine's actually similar. So I'm actually focused on being excited about the process versus the result.
Mm.
Because if you get excited about the process and you're not looking at when's the result going to come, you can achieve so much. When all you're excited about doing versus receiving the end state, you just keep going. Like
Yeah.
there's no stopping. It's just constant growth. So that's something I'm working on myself because we are programmed. Like we talked about being programmed. We're programmed to focus on what's the treat at the end. What's the reward at the end? Where's my gold sticker? Where's all these things? But that creates challenges because if you don't get it, then you're negatively thinking about I'm not successful enough. I didn't get there, or you're everything is about that end state. And quite honestly, the end state is usually less rewarding than the growth you gain anyway. So it's taken forever to figure that out. But that's really what I'm focused on in 24 is enjoy. I'll say enjoy the grind, but enjoy the process, right? And I think that's where I'm going to get the most accelerated growth.
Nice. So we're talking about resetting,
Yep.
since we're, in this first month of the year, pressing the reset button and thinking strategically about how you want your year to be and the things that you want to do to make it the best year that you can possibly have. One of the main things that is important is setting goals. And setting goals can be like pulling teeth. I hate it every year, in a corporate setting when it's time for goal setting. It's like, I don't have time for this. I'm busy. But really, when you set your goals, it's like your navigation. It's your compass. You have a path that you're on. You know what that end goal looks like, and you can be intentional with your steps to make sure that you're moving forward toward those goals. So first off, key thing, beginning of the year, sit down and start setting your goals. So, what are some of the steps you take when you're setting your goals?
So I think there's two different layers to that for me. When I was struggling or when I was having challenges, I wanted to set smaller, more achievable goals to build some momentum. Now I'm at a point where I want to set large goals that almost seem unachievable because I'm only going to achieve as big as I dream, right? And if I set myself up and do all kind of softball lob goals, then I'll achieve them great, but I'm going to not achieve what I could have achieved. I'm not going to reach the levels I could have. So I try to look at a few different things. I'm really big on looking at a vision, like large scale. Where do I want to go? Where do I want to be in 5 years, 10 years? And then I start to go backwards. I typically do what they call a 1-3-5. So I know in 5 years, kind of where I want to be. In 3 years, this should be okay. I should have some of these large chunks moved. But in my 1 year, this is what I want to make sure I get done this year to move me towards that 5 year goal. The 5 year has a little bit of flexibility because things change. but I keep that vision. So I like to break it down into smaller chunks. Again, that gives you some of the excitement of, hey, yes, I've reached a milestone. I feel better about the process, and I get more momentum early. But I have to keep these large, lofty goals to keep challenging myself and keep myself moving forward.
The 135 method, I've used that as well. Um, we talk about purpose a lot. So, this is where purpose is really important for me. It's really key to make sure you're grounded in your purpose. And, like you said, set the vision for the year and then, further out. In setting that vision, I like to vision board. So this is something that I've tried a little bit in the past, but I wasn't ever very consistent with it. This year, I've actually done my vision board. I don't use the poster board and the cutting out of the magazines and all of that. I actually did a digital vision board, and I'll do a little plug for Canva. They have free vision board templates out there that you can use, and they're pretty simple. But creating something visual, I am a very visual person, so something that I can see and a constant reminder is really helpful for me. I use my vision board as my wallpaper on my phone. So we're on our phones all the time. So having that on my phone is helpful. I know some people use it as a background on their computers. I actually just hosted a vision boarding event this past weekend and went through the process of being intentional with the group of people who attended. And I think that that is very impactful. It can be very helpful. Also, another thing that I do that's super important is having accountability partners. Setting the goals, that's great. Setting time and a time frame to your goal that makes you more likely to reach the goal. Telling someone about the goal makes you about 65% more likely to reach the goal. But actually having an accountability partner and having regular scheduled check-ins with that partner, studies show that you are actually 95% more likely to reach your goal if you have an accountability partner. And we actually do that for each other. We talk about what we have going on. And when I know that, okay, I'm going to be talking to Justin, so I want to be able to give you feedback on this is what I've done, or, you're able to see the things that I'm doing to reach my goals. So I highly suggest that in partnership with setting goals, is you get an accountability partner and y'all check in, even if it's once a month, just to talk about this is what I'm doing and, give a status update. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think it makes a huge difference for sure. And it's something that I'm looking at too is who in my group, in my close network is a great accountability partner. And sometimes it's just observing them and seeing how focused they are and how their drive and things they're doing helps me. So I think that makes a world of difference. And it's interesting with the vision board because I actually have a vision board. It is the background of my PC,
Mhm.
but mine isn't time boxed. So mine is the large scale vision. What do I want out of my life? But I do like the idea of what's my year look like too. And so that's something I might borrow from you and start doing in the annual one too. But for me, it's always going to have to be what are my steps this year that are moving me towards my larger scale vision. So I'm a
Mhm.
visual person too. I agree. Have it somewhere where you're going to see it regularly. I'm not going to go buy a bunch of magazines and flip through magazines and cut them out either. There's people that are very crafty. They do that. That's not me. I'm very digital, but I will try the Canva one. But I set that as my desktop background. So I turn on my computer, I see it, and it makes me think about okay, how am I progressing towards it? What am I? Are my actions today getting me towards the vision that I have set forth for myself? And if not, make some adjustments. But
Yeah.
if you don't, to your point, if you have that accountability partner, they can say, "Hey, you're missing. You got to start pivoting. You start making some changes, and make sure you pick somebody that will challenge you." I think that's important too. If you just get somebody that's super agreeable, no, you're doing great. Don't worry about it. Are they really helping hold you accountable? So I think it's easy to want to pick somebody that's just going to agree with you all the time, but you need to pick somebody that cares enough about you to challenge you. And that's not always easy, but I think that's the important part too.
One of the things I did when I paired the people at the event up is I paired people who didn't know each other as well to be accountability partners. So you can choose your best friend, and that's fine. Do what works best for you is ultimately the goal. But I find sometimes when two people are paired and they know each other really well, they may start out by talking about the topic around the goals, but they may naturally progress into talking about other stuff. And so when I paired them so that the reason that they're joining together is on those goals and to be accountable. And if they build a relationship from there, that's wonderful. But my point is, make sure that you're choosing someone, like you said, that will hold you accountable, that's going to challenge you, but someone that is actually going to take it seriously and that y'all aren't going to just glaze over the goal part and start talking about what you're doing next weekend. Make
Right.
sure you stick to that topic before you move on to other things.
100%. So you hinted a couple times. I want to make sure we hit on this. You've hinted a couple times about what you got going on. We've been talking about setting the New Year's straight. So why don't you give everybody a little heads up about how you set your New Year's straight?
Yes. So in previous episodes, I talked about the website I was working on. So it has launched, it's live. Definitely go check it out. It's desiredoutcomes.com. And so my business is executive and life coaching. And in the business, my focus is helping people find purpose to become exceptional leaders and help you live your best life. And for me, joining your career, your chosen career, whatever it is you're doing with your life is super important. I talk about purpose a lot. Purpose is paramount in my coaching practice. When you have your purpose and it's that compass and you align what you do as your career and who you are at your core, your authentic self, then you just bring harmony and balance to your life. I spend a lot of my life disconnected, the person that I am and who I am is at my core versus maybe what I was doing in certain roles didn't align. And it just created a lot of imbalance. And I had this work me or this work life and then peel the layers off and I'd go home and, kind of be this home me. And so my focus is helping people bring that balance and harmony in their lives. So again, check out desiredoutcomes.com and you can see the services that I offer. And I also did a guide, 5 Secrets to Thriving in Leadership and Life. And you can download that for free and get some tips from my many years as a senior exec.
I think that's fantastic. And I'm super excited and super proud of everything that you got going on. Obviously, we'll have the link in the description and it'll probably be there going forward, obviously, just for people that want to check it out and kind of get more information, more one on one time with Melanie. It's a great way to do that and capitalize on her services. I will tell you, like we've talked about it before, but in the leadership roles, it's so taxing, and you have to find that balance. Otherwise, you're going to really drain yourselves and heavily impact your life. So I think what you're doing is critical, and obviously, it ties directly into what we're doing here on the podcast. So super excited to see it moving forward. Glad to hear you had a great first event. Can't wait to hear more about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been awesome. So as we talked about, setting that hitting that reset button, this is the focus for me going forward in 2024. And the thing that I really want to make sure I'm intentional about building this business and helping people. That's really my purpose is being here to help people. So it's awesome to have finally found that purpose. I spent a long time trying to figure it out. So there's anybody out there that's struggling and just still trying to find that purpose and find that balance, let's talk.
That's great. And I think, we've talked about it quite a bit, but it makes such a difference. We're not anti-corporate whatsoever. I think there's a huge value to corporate roles, but knowing that that isn't your life and identifying what your purpose is and being able to align the two, your job doesn't always tie to your purpose. Unfortunately, it just it doesn't always work that way for everybody. But if you make sure you balance that time in corporate to continue your life and fund your life and do those things, but spending time in your purpose, life is so much better. The
Yeah.
stress, I can't stand the thought of getting up on Monday or 8 o'clock. The alarm goes off 6 o'clock and you're just dreading the day. That starts to melt away because you're still fulfilling your purpose. And that stress, like we talked about, kind of looking back, feels trivial now
Hmm.
because that isn't your entire life.
Hmm.
So, yeah, love where you're heading. Love to see the progress. Can't wait to see more of it. So,
Yeah,
definitely
and
check
I'm
it out.
still I'm still very much corporate connected. I'm a leadership consultant. I also do risk management and internal audit consulting and still have my partnerships. And so, like you said, we're absolutely not anti-corporate. I am pro purpose. So once you figure that piece out, then the work that you're doing, whatever arena that it's in, it all kind of comes together.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, anything else you want to share about the reset before we wrap it up?
No, I think for me, like we talked about a little bit in the beginning, the end of the year was a little tough, and it's I have reflected and said my ability to maneuver the challenge has changed dramatically, and I look back to where I was even 2 years ago, and everything just felt like it was piling on. So I highly encourage everybody, spend the time, do the work. There's a different life on the other side of that self work. And when you can do that, those challenges, they're still going to come, but your ability to maneuver them and find the positive and move forward and reduce the amount of energy it drains from you is substantial. So I'm really hoping everybody has a strong start to 2024. If you did have a challenging year, make sure you're looking at what were the lessons. How do I struggle, or how do I not struggle, and how do I find strength and momentum going into 24? And if you had a great end of the year, that's fantastic. Capitalize on the momentum. Where are we heading? If you're the vision board type or you haven't, even if you're not, I recommend checking it out. I think it does good to get that down there. But start to look at your goals and what are you trying to accomplish, and then do little bits throughout the year and go in. That checking off that box is very rewarding. So while you're still kind of in the reward mode versus reward for process, do those things that give you that lift. That's something tangible and meaningful. That will give you so much momentum throughout the year.
Absolutely. So, again, make sure you guys like and share our episodes. Definitely subscribe to our channel so you can continue to hear about our episodes and the things that we're doing. And why don't you take a moment and drop something in the comments? Tell us how you reset your year, what you've done so far, even what you plan to do to help you reset and get off on the right foot in 2024. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, outside of that, we'll see you next time with our next episode, and y'all be good.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.